Welcome back. Here's Captain Hush Cookie, or at least that's what the Rolling Stones fan in the comments section of my last video called me. I used to like Hush Cookies, especially when I was on holiday in Amsterdam long ago. I no longer do them, but anyway, today's video is of course about the big announcement. Yes, it's finally coming. Now and Then, the very last Beatles single will be released on November the 2nd, and about 1 week later the new revamped Blue and Red album will be released. So what's my opinion of that? I did a video, I think 3 months ago, when first rumors were starting, and I kind of predicted the way it turned out now. I even made in that other video a track list, what I would like, a new expanded Red and Blue album, which additional tracks I would like, and I'm glad to see that most of my suggestions were taken seriously by the Apple team. Others not, let's get right into it. I'm glad that tracks like Blackbird or Twist and Shout, and then many more tracks from the White Album and Revolver, which were the underrepresented albums, have now been added. But of course, you can't make it so that everyone will like it. There's probably 500 million Beatle fans in the world, and so I understand that they had to make some decisions. But still to me at least, some weird decisions. For example, You Can't Do That is on the Red Album, but not Things We Said Today. Those were the two B-sides of the singles, Can't Buy Me Love and The Hard Day's Night. But I would argue that Things We Said Today is the much bigger classic in a way. I also don't understand, Twist and Shout, that was obvious. The Beatles made it their own song, but why add other covers? The Beatles weren't famous outside of Twist and Shout for their covers. You Really Got a Hold on Me. Okay, that's one of the better covers. Or over Beethoven, I wouldn't have put those on. There would have been much more interesting songs. Maybe not from With the Beatles, which these two songs were taken from, but Beatles for Sale, great Lennon-McCartney compositions from Beatles for Sale that were, omitted. Other things that I find strange is, the White Album. I really like Glass Onion because the White Album is my favorite album of all time, so I kind of like each song on that album. But really, is Glass Onion one of the 6 standout tracks? It's great that they added Blackbird, but Helter Skelter, of the tracks that weren't previously on the Blue Album from the White Album, I think Helter Skelter is obviously the most important track, the most infamous track even. But also other things, Happiness is a Warm Gun was always one of the personal favorites of each of the 4 Beatles. That's one of the few songs in the catalogue where there's quotes by each of the 4 Beatles that it's one of their favorite songs. And at least Ringo and Paul should still have a say in what's going on the album, so why no Happiness is a Warm Gun? Same applies for Yeah Blues. Beatles were big fans of Yeah Blues, and also I think that the goal for the new added tracks was to make a more colorful palette, to show everything the Beatles could do. That would explain why With You Without You is on the new Blue Album, so to show more sides to the Beatles. So Helter Skelter would have been an example of showing a very special side of the Beatles, their hardest song. Anyway, I'm glad that With You Without You is on there. Birthday, I Will, those would have also been not as obvious as Helter Skelter or Happiness is a Warm Gun, but still I would think they are more important than Glass Onion. But that's just my opinion. Of course, it's a bit silly to to debate single tracks on a 75 in total compilation. All in all, I think the new track lists, of course, are an improvement to the old track list, especially that they made up for that strange Revolver underrepresentation, just 2 tracks from an album that many consider the best album of all time. But still, also with the Revolver phase, a glaring strange omission, Rain. No Rain. I think that was I'm not sure if it was a double A side like Strawberry Fields Penny Lane or Day Tripper. We can work it out, but at least for fans, Rain is the same caliber as Paperback Writer. So maybe not. If you think you have then you would have to match from 1966, which I don't. Then maybe omit I'm Only Sleeping and put on Rain. You know, it's a bit a similar thing. You know, the backwards guitar, John Lennon stuff. So there would still be a backwards guitar in the John Lennon song if you omit. If you exchange I'm Only Sleeping with Rain, but Rain I think is the more important, the bigger track, and also the rarer track. You know, if you you know, of course, Red Blue album. This is more for the casual fans, not for the diehard fans, which have all the songs already. But you know, it's very easy even for casual fans to get I'm Only Sleeping on a physical copy just by Revolver. But Rain, you know, that would have been a bit more logical, especially if they still have, which was one of the strangest things on the Blue album, was Old Brown Shoe, which I like, but it's not one of the big tracks. So if you have an unimportant B-side like Old Brown Shoe on the Blue album, why don't you have Rain on the Red album? But anyway, I'm stopping right here with that because that's silly wish fulfillment thinking. You know, I'm not one of those fans who thinks he's entitled to judge what's the best tracklist for that. All in all, it's okay. But as I feared, of course, this will be mostly new remixes, and the songs that aren't new 2023 remixes are, you know, from the remixes of the past 5, 6, 7 years. I've often said it on my channel, and it's one of the most controversial opinions I have in these Beatle videos of mine, because many fans tell me how stupid I am in the comments, that I don't like the remixes because they think you can't listen to the those stereo mixes are awful, it's false stereo, and they made mistakes. But yeah, but I like the mistakes, you know, that's how the Beatles intended it. I never liked a remix of any Beatles song so far more than the original. I will always go back to the original. And if these are, you know, from now on, you know, I think the old Red and Blue will, you know, go out of will no longer be sold in forthcoming years. So this will be the canon, you know, these remixes, and I think for new generations these will be the go-to mixes. I think that's at least the goal of Apple and the Beatle people. I wouldn't say that I'm sad because of that, because I personally I can still listen to the old mixes, of course. But you know, I really, why not just, you know, if you want to make money with repackaging old stuff and calling it new, then remaster it again. You know, I don't really have a problem with remasters, although even that, you know, I listen to the old mixes, old masters. That's my preferred way of listening to that stuff. I think it's too much of an intrusion into what their artistic vision was, especially since John and George are no longer there, and I don't think Paul and Ringo have much say in these remixes, because if they really would have a say, or would take their say, of course they have a say, but would take that more serious, they would be against that stuff. But you know, and I don't think Charles Martin, maybe someone else, but I think Charles Martin is also the problem. I don't think he's good at his job, to be that drastic. I don't think he's a good producer, and I think he's an even worse remixer. But that's, you know, that was foreseeable that these will be remixed things. Yeah, but the big thing for me, at least, of course, is what's happening 1 week before the re-release of the Blue and the Red album. One thing, why didn't they rename the albums from 1962 to 1966? Could have been renamed to Red album, and it's more, you know, important for the Blue album, because in fact it's now 1967 to 2023. They couldn't call it that because just of one track, so it's still called 1967 to 1970. But that's misleading, because, you know, there's Now and Then as the final track, which is, you know, a zombie track from which takes things from the 60s, 70s, 90s, and then now from 2023. So they could have easily named it Red and Blue album, renamed it. That's how fans anyway, and everyone in the public refers to them, that would have been, the appropriate title now. But whatever, the highlight for me is of course the new single. I'm a bit disappointed that Love Me Do will be the B-side. I understand it, full circle, first song, first single, last single on a double A-side. But who really needs a new mix of Love Me Do? They would have had the chance to make a 3-track EP, and the B-sides could have been Real Love and Free as a Bird. And now I'm contradicting myself in a way, because these 2 tracks would need remixing, and they are completely left off of this project. So maybe we'll never say never. They will, when the next anniversary will come, then probably it's time for those to be remixed. But who will care then? I think now would have been the chance for it. Those are about the only 2 Beatle tracks that I would really love to see remixed, because with 90s technology, and I also would say Jeff Lynne, like Charles Martin, a producer I'm not really fond of. I like him as a songwriter. Jeff Lynne and the technology of the 90s weren't up to the task, I think, and I like Real Love and Free as a Bird. I like what the Beatles did with John's demos, but the mix is terrible on both songs. The way, John's voice nowadays with AI, I'm a bit against AI to embellish voices, but these would be exceptions, because those are already Frankenstein kind of songs. So Free as a Bird and Real Love would have needed some AI voice treatment and noise reduction and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure they did that, tinker with John's voice on Now and Then. At least I hope so, because like most of us, I'm familiar with his rough home demo of that song. And yeah, it will be interesting to Now and Then. That will be the most interesting thing about that big November release. I'm a bit scared also, because 5 minutes ago I said this song will use elements from the 60s, 70s, 90s, and from 2023, because now it's confirmed, or at least almost confirmed, that there will be bits of 60s songs woven into it, so a bit like the Love project from the 90s. There will be background vocals from, I think, Eleanor Rigby, Because, and Here, There and Everywhere woven in. I think they did that so that they can say that also George Harrison sings on that song, because they announced that there will be background vocals by all of the Beatles, by Paul, George and Ringo. So George definitely didn't do background vocals in the 90s, I think, because he hated that song, and he aborted working on that song after a very short while in I think February 1995. I think he just put down some guitars. The rest was now added by Paul and Ringo, plus the demo from 1979 by John. So in order to also have background vocals by Paul, but especially by George, I think they took some vocal harmonies. It would be obvious, because those 3 songs, Because, Here, There and Everywhere, and Eleanor Rigby, what are they famous for? For their vocal harmonies, and also for George's involvement in the 3-part vocal harmonies. So I don't know how I feel about that, but like with Real Love and Free as a Bird, those were Frankenstein songs from the beginning, and maybe it's cool. I'm kind of optimistic for that song. I'm one of the few in the fandom who always liked the home demo by John. So it can only improve now with all the stuff that's added. I think Paul McCartney, played like 5 different instruments on the new recording, and I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, it's I'm conflicted, but all in all, I think those are great news. I'm very, very much looking forward to it. Red Blue album, and that it's remixed, and it's a bit of a money grab. If you want the colored vinyl version of the Red and Blue, it's more than $70, euros, pounds each. Even the black vinyl, €60. The 7 inches are like €20. It's not cheap, but okay. It's the last Beatles single. It's something like a a final thing. I can understand it that they charge that much, and 20 euros isn't. In fact, it's not really much. It's just much for a 7-inch, but it's not much money. Let's face it. But all in all, I'm looking forward especially to the single. I also ordered, of course, red and blue, but the CD versions. And yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you very much for watching. Till next time, Captain Hush Cookie. Goodbye.
Reissue, repackage, repack.